hearing to order. At this time, I'm going to waive the Pledge of Allegiance in that we could be doing it 4 times, and we will save it for the finale, which is the main meeting, so we'll do it at that time. Roxanne, would you read the call of the public hearing, please?
For the Neighborhood Assistance Act tax credit eligibility, the Ledyard Town Council will conduct a public hearing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, June 25th, 2014, in the Council Chambers, Town Hall Annex, 741 Colonel Ledyard Highway, Ledyard, Connecticut, to receive comment on the proposed projects: parks and recreation, walking, track, steps, handicapped accessibility improvements at Ledyard Middle School. The Neighborhood Assistance Act request would be $150,000 for a total cost of $210,000. Project 2 is Parks and Recreation Trail improvements for Glacial Park and Whitehall Park, enlarged parking areas, Colonel Ledyard Trail, Burton Property Trail, and Chriswood Trail general cleanup and improvements. The Neighborhood Assistance Act fund request would be $60,000 for a total project cost of $100,000, and Project 3 is to resurface the apparatus pavement at the Gales Ferry Fire Company facility located at 1772 Route 12 Gales Ferry. The Neighborhood Assistance Act request would be $45,000 for a total project cost of $75,000. The Form NA-01-2014 Connecticut Neighborhood Assistance Act program proposal was available in the town clerk's office, dated at Ledyard, Connecticut, the 12th day of June, 2014. For the Ledyard Town Council, Linda C. Davis, Chairman. It was published in New London Day on June 16, 2014.
Thank you. Is there a presentation? Is anybody going to discuss this? Would you like to talk about your individual pieces? Would you, Don? That would be great. Thank you.
Very quickly, this is basically what I told the Conservation Commission folks the other night. At the April staff meeting, Charlie, the town planner, mentioned the Neighborhood Assistance Act. Quite frankly, I had no intentions of doing anything about that until I received 2 phone calls. One was a Boy Scout, and one was another one complaining about there's nothing in Gales Ferry. So, and in the meantime, we sent emails out, once we got those phone calls, to Conservation Commission. They came up with some ideas and so on, and we talked to Charlie. Charlie sent us the application. It was like 4 or 5 pages. We completed it and forwarded it to Charlie. I guess he presented this to you guys. And, you know, we did receive Mrs. Davis's email, and when I was down south, I checked my email, and I received the mayor's emails and Roxanne's emails. At first, upon reading the emails, I thought that I did not follow the grant application. So I turned around and I called the Department of Revenue Services, Mr. Mike County, and I says, look, you know, what do you really need when we submit this stuff? He said, legislative body. Okay. And it's what I told the other 2 groups, and this is the various commissioners need to approve it. And of course, they were all aware. Nobody approved it yet. And they said, no, not really. I said, do you need the front money for this? And he basically said, no. You know, submit the application. And that's exactly what we did. But thinking about this entire process, I came up with a however. The however is maybe the town council should not address, you know, our particular stuff that was sitting in here. Then it would give the Conservation Commission the opportunity to look into what we've suggested and maybe add more projects. With 2 key new staff members coming into the Board of Ed, maybe they can take a look at what we suggested for the middle school and maybe put a package together for hopefully doing something about the drainage problem there. And in the meantime, we can go back, take a look at some of our other projects that we've been thinking about, and then all 3 of us can start the process, you know, going before the commission application, we completed it, and we forwarded it to Charlie. Then we received all the emails, and I understand all that too. The middle school, though, is an interesting thing. If you're standing at the entrance of the middle school, a few years ago, I believe when Sue was mayor, we put in a track, and we did, we put like 6 or 7 of those dry wells to help with the drainage. Obviously, it just got worse and worse. But if you take a look at the middle school and you stand there, because as some of you folks may know, May we got a lot of rain, and it's up to us to cancel games or not. So we're sitting there, well, I'm sitting there looking at it, and there's the lake. So wouldn't it be nice to put a trail 4 or 5 feet wide around it, cutting into the edge by the parking lot, put steps in, provide handicap access? And I said, well, why don't we build stairs up? Not coming up, because the kids, since we took backstop down, the kids are enjoying that tremendously when it snows, but from the sun. And I'm thinking, boy, what a workout that would be for somebody, running up, running down. And of course, one thing led to another. We were talking to Sam, heaps of the maintenance for the Board of Ed, and says, you do realize that if you put a 4-foot track around there and you cut into the side, you got to put railings up and all this stuff. And then you got to put steps coming in from that side down and so on. The other thing I mentioned to everybody was it was an idea, it was a thought based upon a couple of phone calls we got. By the time, I believe we submitted in May 28th, first week of June I was going, third week of June I was going, just got back the other day. And we, again, it was a thought, we got the paperwork, we submitted it to Charlie. However, I think we would all benefit if we had the opportunity to commence everything again in a couple of months. Conservation can do their thing. You'll have 2 new people on the Board of Ed. They can take a look at it, hopefully take a look at the drainage, and we have a few other projects that we're interested in.
Questions?
I guess I'm confused, right? So are you recommending not to bring forward these 2 projects and we start over again in 2 months with conservation? Okay, thank you. I want to make sure I understood what you were. Okay, thank you.
May I just ask
Yeah.
you, if we were, just procedurally, if we were to go ahead and, let's say, we said yes to these things, would that preclude the possibility of them being withdrawn or augmented in some way at a later date?
Our deadline's June 30th.
Okay.
So,
That's
You can't change them after they've been submitted.
And it's like what Charlie said, the chances are pretty small.
Tom, I have a question for you. Are you referring to a new walking trail that would be above the existing one? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's when you cut into that
right.
thing.
So wouldn't there have to be a tremendous amount of retainage around there?
any other questions?
See, if you do say, if you just say rejected, that would give us ample time to start talking to people. Because we have some projects, for example, we're playground. And, we're getting into the area that we're very familiar with, and we know that there are 6 or 7 major corporations out there that would be interested in something like that. Again, an opportunity came to us, and I took it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Have a good evening.
Wait, I'm sorry. Yes.
This is Bill Tom speaking from remote, and I couldn't hear Mr. Greasy. So could someone just summarize what's changed with this application or may change?
Nothing changed. He's just, in addition to explaining the 2 projects, Mr. Greasy was essentially recommending a do-over, to start over again, to look at other expanding potentially more detailed, better look at these 2 particular projects. He also noted that there are 2 new members of the Board of Ed, and giving time for the Conservation Commission to look at their side of the project in more detail and present a better plan for the coming year as opposed to right now.
Got it. Okay.
That's summarized essentially? Yeah. So that's essentially what, in addition to explaining what the current projects were and how they came to be. That's what he was recommending.
Okay.
Anything?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
What is the next time we can submit, or is this an annual? Okay, okay.
See, next
I
time
know you
around,
said 2
conservation
months,
can
I
do
think.
their thing, get it ready, line up everybody, the Board of Ed, if they're interested, they can do their thing, and we'll do ours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Have fun, thank you.
Mr. Chief Saccone, do you have anything to add?
The company foreman would like to speak.
Oh, yes,
Okay,
please.
Sure, Ryan Graham.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
Thank you. Like you said, I'm Ryan Graham, I'm a fire company foreman. We're applying for $45,000 for the NAA for a total amount of $75,000. The reason that we're applying this year is our front driveway parking lot is caving in and buckling under the weight of the fire apparatus. These improvements will improve the appearance of our fire station as well as limiting the amount of damage to the town fire apparatus. These improvements will also reduce and eliminate any chance of injury to firefighters or members of the public due to uneven asphalt in front of the firehouse.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any further comments?
I have comments.
Yes.
This is Bill Tom again. We kind of stopped and started on this process, and it was kind of rushed and at the last minute, and I don't know if Mr. Greasy is there or not, but he and I talked yesterday. At one point, when this first came up to finance, these projects were proposed, and some key votes had not taken place, and there was some initial discussion about not closing the public hearing because the proper votes hadn't been taken by the Conservation Commission, Board of Ed, and Parks and Rec. And I think everyone will agree that Parks and Rec is a fantastic organization, and we have, I think, one of the best, and I think many people will say one of the best Parks and Rec programs in the town. However, we decided we'd go forward with scheduling the public hearing, even though we didn't have the votes, because we wanted to illuminate what was wrong with the process. What was wrong with the process was two things. One, it appears from my conversations with Mr. Greasy yesterday that everybody that needed to know Board of Ed, Conservation Commission, and Parks and Rec knew about the projects. But more importantly, I think what was missing was the public, who also has the right to know, did not have access to that information. Because the votes hadn't been taken, there weren't meeting minutes. So with our increasing use of IQM to put our meeting minutes and our agendas and everything else that we do online, that information was missing. So the potential existed for taxpayers to see these new improvements and have absolutely no way of knowing, other than going around asking town officials how we got these new improvements made. And the assumption could be drawn by many who wouldn't ask that this was done with taxpayer money. And to some extent it is, but they wouldn't know that this was done with grants from business, which is key in the program. Secondly, we've also spent the last few years focusing on what constitutes a legal public meeting. And as I stated to Mr. Greasy yesterday, we're trying to make it clear that we can't use email to communicate because it's not a public meeting. Everybody who gets the email knows what's going on, but no one else can see that unless they file an FOI complaint. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is FOI complaints from the public because they don't know what's going on. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you for the time.
I would just like to clarify what Mr. Sons is referring to, and that was emails that went back and forth between Mr. Greasy and Conservation. Those emails really could be considered sort of an illegal meeting. So that I believe that's what you're referring to, Bill, correct?
Yes,
okay.
correct. Yep.
Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you.
And 333 Pumpkin Hill Road. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Bill. Any further comments? Mr. Chair?
Good evening, Mike Cherry, 5 Whippoorwill Drive, Chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission. find myself in a different mode. I've never gotten up here and opposed any project that's ever been proposed by anybody in town for any reason. I've always been for them, and I think you all can sit there and go, yeah, come up and talk about it. But this looks like money looking for a project instead of a project looking for money. The budget ink wasn't even dry in April when the phone calls came in. The mill rate was set at your last meeting, the bills haven't gone out yet, and all of a sudden, we have a need to spend another $100,000 from Parks and Rec Fund 8 that wasn't in the capital improvement plan, wasn't cut from the budget originally, and if the money was available, God knows there was plenty of stuff in the SIP that we didn't approve, that we pulled back, and things we cut from the budget. So I'll applaud the fire company. Their application is professional. It's tight. It's not scratched on the Xerox things out of the application, and they have a real need. That's maintenance. A lot of what Parks and Recs is proposing for the Board of Ed and for the Conservation Commission is new construction. And I'm sorry, additions to town property, improvements to town property that aren't maintenance require an 824 review in accordance with Connecticut General Statute. And if you don't do that, we're opening ourselves up for somebody to complain we didn't follow the process and get an injunction. And I talked to Councilor Branson before we started. Yes, you can go do that after the fact, but it's poor practice. I kind of agree with Don. If you rush it, you skip a lot of steps. And what happened to all the things that were so important that they showed up from the department heads to the mayor, but didn't show up on this list? Found money looking for a project. We had plenty of projects looking for money.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Eric Treaster, Huntington Way. I think this is one of the rare times that Mike and I agree. I gave myself an A+ for that. A couple of things. In the document that I found online, there's a blank NAA-01 form. It was not filled in. And on page 2 of the form, it asks for a description of the program, the need for the program, the neighborhood to be served, and the total number of recipients. And I'm curious as to what the total number of recipients is that went on the applications that have been, obviously they must exist someplace. I was curious if that's like 10 or 100 or 1,000, 5,000, what that number is. Also, if I'm reading the online material correctly, and I may not, it appears that Ledyard taxpayers will have to pay some of the cost. All of the proposed projects combined will cost $385,000, while the amount provided under the NAA program is only $255,000, which means Ledyard taxpayers will have to pay $130,000, which, by my standards, is a lot of money. As you know, I spoke during the town meeting about these incremental mill rate increases, 10th here, 2/10 there, and so forth. And eventually it all adds up. $130,000 is a lot of money. Where is this money coming from? And is it cost effective, considering that it will likely only benefit an exceedingly small percentage of Ledyard residents? Ledyard's 15,000 residents. In my opinion, it does not seem like a good use of taxpayer funds, especially since the town is anticipating major and mandatory school and sewer treatment costs in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes.
Yes. I appreciate the comments that were made this evening, and I will tell you that I have also had discussions with several of the entities that were involved in this process. And the only comment I would have is, and I probably agree that this was moved along rather quickly in response to an opening that we saw in the possibility of getting funding for projects, which I think are probably worthy projects. But let's not say that there wasn't time to discuss this. There was time to discuss this. The problem is that I believe we need to do a better job of educating many of the commissions and committees in town on process. You know, there was communication back and forth, some of it informal, such as emails, some of it very formal by the town council. And, you know, I think there needs to be a better job of communication in terms of when someone receives, when organizations receive correspondence that I think pretty directly indicate that action is needed, that action needs to be followed up, or as a minimum, there ought to be a question that's asked of the right people. Hey, I just got this letter, what am I supposed to do with it? Instead of just the thought that, well, I think I did everything I could on this. So again, I have no problem with delaying these projects, but we could have still had that conversation and still come to the same conclusion, but we would have had the conversation in time. And now to put some of these things off for a year is unfortunate. And certainly, I believe that, you know, the fire companies certainly did their job, and you know, we should certainly proceed with that. But I think there, and I don't know how to handle it. I know part of it is FOI, part of it is just basic, you know, communication skills, and I certainly understand that you know, I need to have that conversation with my staff as well, and I've already begun to have that individually and as a group, that we need to understand the process that's required, the council being one of the most formal bodies in the town, but I don't think that means that other bodies don't need to be as formal in the things that they take on. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to add to what the mayor said, is there was a very formal letter which you all saw in your correspondence that was sent from the council, signed by me, the chair, to these organizations. And for whatever reason, the letter was pretty much ignored. So you put it much nicer than I did. So the only thing that I would add is that I really am getting tired of paying for public hearings that don't go anywhere. And, you know, if we were going to drop these projects, then I think it would have been nice to know that before we spent the money. This is taxpayers' dollars. So, any other comments? Hearing none, this public hearing is adjourned.